Hey, what's up guys? I'm Charles.
And I'm Christine. In this video, we're going to be printing sweatshirts and hoodies for the Student Nurses Association at New Mexico State University.
We're going to teach you the processes we're using for this job so you can learn how to screen print high quality graphics on fleece garments. Welcome to Ragged Apparel.
Before we get started, we have a quick disclaimer. We are a licensed garment decorator for New Mexico State University and the collegiate licensing company CLC Learfield IMG. These sweatshirts and hoodies have been approved for licensing by NMSU and the CLC prior to production. And although we are going to teach you how we are printing these products, we must advise you to never ever, under any circumstances, print any copyrighted or trademarked items without license to do so. All right, so now that we have that all out of the way, let's get started.
We're going to be printing two different garments for this job. We're printing crew neck sweatshirts and hoodies. The design inspiration for the first set of sweatshirts was to have a throwback vintage athletic feel.
Think about the 80s and the 90s gym class, a single color print on a gray shirt with shorts that were way too short, which seem to be making a strong comeback nowadays.
You know, we were very stylish back then, the yellow and blue striped tube socks and all. All right, for this logo, we stuck with a single color. We kept the design simple using a standard athletic block font and added an arch to the top text to give it that retro gym class feel. We also added a distressed overlay to the graphic to give it the appearance that it had been printed long ago and worn as their favorite sweatshirt for years and years.
This design is being printed on a Tooltex 340 unisex crew neck sweatshirt in heather gray, and we are using a single screen for this design. We are using a 23 by 31 Newman roller frame with Saudi High-Tex yellow mesh with a 196 thread count and a 55 thread diameter. We tensioned this screen to be 30 newtons.
Using a higher thread count screen is very important to achieve the look that we're wanting with this specific design. A higher mesh screen allows you to print finer details, and although this design is basic in its essence, it does have the fine details of the distressing, which would be lost with a lower mesh screen. It'll also allow us to print sharper edges.
This mesh count also gives us better control in the ink saturation, which helps us to further enhance that illusion of being a vintage print. Not to mention, we can create an amazing print with hardly any print hand.
Now, keep in mind, we're not saying to print this light, meaning you wouldn't have enough ink coverage, because that would just make it look like it wasn't printed correct to begin with. What we're wanting to do is we're wanting it to look vintage, like it's an old-time favorite, and there really is a difference.
If we were printing this on a t-shirt, we would definitely increase the mesh count to at minimum a 230 mesh, and maybe even a 280 for this specific print. With a higher mesh count on a t-shirt, we'd be able to get more of a matte finish, which would look super cool for the vintage look. But because it is going on a sweatshirt, which has a thicker and greater textured surface, we are using a 196, which will give us good, even ink coverage without being thick, and will still give us the definition we are looking for.
We coated this screen using Saudi PHU emulsion with 2 coats on the print side, or the side that touches the shirt, and 1 coat on the squeegee side, using the round edge of the coater. When coating your screens, always make sure to coat the print side first and then the squeegee side last, and dry your screens face down, basically how they would sit on your press.
By doing this, you will allow the emulsion to create the gasket and ink dwell on the print side of the screen. If you don't do this, you're going to end up causing problems with your squeegee, not being able to properly shear the ink, and you're not going to have proper ink lay down on the surface of the shirt.
We're loading this screen on printhead 1, flashing on printhead 2, and using an Action Engineering roller squeegee on printhead 3. So you may be asking yourself, why would we be using a roller for a single screen print? Well, to be honest, it isn't really necessary for this print, but it's not adding any time to our job, so we figured we might as well run it. Because it's not hurting anything and can only help, it's also going to help prevent fibrillation.
For this print, we are using a 70-90-70 triple durometer squeegee. We've got our print head set to a medium to fast flood and print stroke.
Ink is a viscous material. It's what is called thixotropic. As it is worked, which you can do either by stirring or it being moved by the flood bar under a squeegee, it warms up. The molecules quit being lazy and they start moving around, and it becomes more pliable. It flows better. It's a similar principle as how vehicle oil works. When oil is cold, it's thick and pours slowly, but when it warms up, it flows and pours much more easily.
A better flowing ink passes through a screen easier. So by having a faster print stroke, it works the ink, and you are essentially priming your ink to flow through the screen openings better, which gives you a higher ink deposit.
This is one of the variables you can adjust in your print process to get the ink saturation that you're looking for. It also helps your print production speed. Now we've got the squeegee set at around a 2-degree angle, pretty much straight up and down.
A greater squeegee angle lays down more ink, which is again another adjustable variable. But for this print, we want a thin ink deposit. Also, if you have your angle set too much, it's going to start pushing the ink through the screen instead of shearing it, which you don't want because that's going to cause you to oversaturate and muddy your print.
The ink we're using is a 6137 maroon from International Coatings. We did not add any additives to the ink for this print.
Now let's get into the specifics for the second print. But before we do, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of great information to share, so if you hit that bell icon, you'll be notified when we upload a new video that will help you become a better screen printer.
So for the design elements for the second set of hoodies, we went with a more modern athletic feel, but still with that classic baseball style design. Swoop bubble style lettering with athletic tails. This is a 2-color design, white and crimson, which we are printing on dark charcoal heather hoodies from Cotton Heritage.
For this design, we'll be using 3 screens. Again, we are using 23 by 31 Newman roller frames. For the white underbase, we'll be using a Sadi Hydro yellow mesh in a 157 thread count with a 48 thread diameter.
Now, this is a thin thread mesh, and we only ever use thin thread mesh for underbases on hoodies, and not even necessarily all the time. The thinner diameter of the thread results in a larger percentage open area in the mesh than a standard mesh diameter. So because the thread is thinner, there is less resistance on the ink, and because the open area is larger, ink is able to pass through much easier.
Since the ink passes through easier, you end up with a thicker layer of ink and essentially more opacity. So because of this, thin thread has become all the rage in screen printing over the past couple years. It's commonly thought of as being easier to print with, but in our opinion, thin thread isn't really the optimal choice for the majority of applications.
Thin thread is great for water-based inks because they don't have the same shearing characteristics that plastisol inks do. But because of the shear properties of plastisol, if you have a properly tensioned screen, say of around 22 newtons or higher, then the standard thread diameter mesh works much better for plastisol inks.
If you have a low tension screen, then the mesh has more flex and bowing in it as the squeegee passes over it. So you may not be getting an optimal shear of the ink. So then printers will use a thin thread and maybe getting more ink coverage, but in reality, you're just compensating for having bad screens to begin with.
And so you get the illusion of the thin thread being easier to print with. Now there's a lot of other technical details of using thin thread versus standard thread, but that's a topic for another video.
All that being said, yes, we are using a thin thread for this job. We have found that with the right variables and the thicker textures of hoodies, we are able to get a great underbase with a 157 or a 160 thin thread mesh.
Now keep in mind, this is only for hoodies. We would never ever use this setup for t-shirts. Also, we're printing the underbase at an 80% transparency level. So that is also reducing the amount of ink we're laying down on the garment. And now I know that you're thinking then, why are you using a thin thread mesh if you're printing at a reduced transparency level? Why not just use a standard thread? I know it sounds counterproductive, but it's all about being able to get a thin layer of ink with a good opacity for that underbase.
Because of the thicker fabric of a hoodie with a standard thread, you typically need to double stroke the print to get good opacity and a good clearing of the screen. We don't like to do this with the underbase because it makes it a little too thick for our liking.
Not only does it affect the print hand, but it also affects the way the top colors print.
When it comes to hoodies, you have to be able to put down just the right amount of ink.
And by using the thin thread at a reduced transparency level, we can use a single stroke and get enough opacity while laying down a very thin layer of ink. Trust us, it's like magic.
We would love to hear your thoughts of questions about using thin thread though. Do you use thin thread? Do you use it with all your prints? Make sure to let us know what your processes are down in the comments. Okay, let's get back to the specifics of these screens. For the crimson and the highlight white screens, we are also using 23 by 31 Newman roller frames, but we're using Saudi high-tex yellow mesh in a 196 thread count with a 55 thread diameter. All 3 screens for this print have been tensioned to 30 newtons. We coated each screen using Saudi PHU emulsion with 2 coats on the shirt side and 1 coat on the squeegee side with the round edge of the coater.
We'll be printing the underbase on printhead 1, we'll be flashing on printhead 2, and using the roller squeegee on printhead 3. We'll be printing the crimson on printhead 5 and the highlight white on printhead 6.
We are using a 70, 90, 70 triple durometer squeegee on all the print heads as well. We've got the squeegees for the white ink set straight up and down, while the crimson is set at about 5 degrees. We will have a slow to medium print speed for the underbase with a single stroke.
Again, we don't want to put down too much ink on that underbase because doing so will make the rest of the print look muddy and will also cause the overall print hand to be thick.
We'll be printing a medium to fast flood and print stroke on the crimson and a medium print speed on the highlight white.
The white ink we're using is 7014 Legacy White from International Coatings. We'll also add in some Wilflex soft hand base. For the crimson, we're going to be using Union Ink PMS 208, which is the official PMS crimson color for New Mexico State University.
All right, so now that you've learned all the technical aspects of this print, let's jump onto the press and get printing.
Track, no turn.
All right, guys, we've got everything printed up, and these sweatshirts and hoodies look awesome. The colors are perfect, and the prints have great opacity, and they're super soft. These customers are really gonna love these.
We hope that you learned a lot from this video. We gave you a lot of technical information that we know can seem confusing and overwhelming.
But take it all in that information and really think about it so you'll begin to understand it better. Then pretty soon, you can start utilizing these techniques in your own screen printing.
By emulating our processes, you will begin to understand how different variables can be implemented to raise the bar in your screen printing.
Our channel is designed to provide you with useful information and techniques that will help you level up your screen printing.
So make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell icon so you can get notified when we upload more helpful screen printing videos.
And as always, we want to give a special thank you to our daughter Taylor, who helps us with our content creation and works as the producer for our channel. And we also want to thank you as well for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Bye guys.